All right, what's up? Inclined planes, simple machines. All right, so today that's what we'll be learning about. Let's get started. All right, so inclined planes, they're used to help move heavy objects up a certain height. So as you see here, a ramp is really kind of what it looks like. So you're asking yourself now, well, what else is an inclined plane? It's a simple machine, very simple. All right, so simple a caveman could do it. That was like a commercial back in the day. You guys are probably too young. That it's used to spread out the force needed to move an object. So by moving small, gradual steps instead of all at once, it becomes easier to move objects a certain height. So even though you might be going to the same destination, you might not have enough force to reach that destination without an inclined plane. So you would then use an inclined plane to get to that destination a little bit easier. It might take longer, but you can still get there. So they work by using a long surface to create a ramp where one side is higher than the other, because that would be a ramp. All right, so objects can be moved up or down the ramp. So here we have a big red arrow that says ramp, and we all see that object on the middle of the ramp, and then we have it up a certain height. So it's going from high to low or low to high. So moving an object gradually over a longer distance is easier than lifting it by hand. So taking this block here, if you were to move the block from the bottom to the top over on the far right, you would have to lift that block up over your head and put it up there. You might not be strong enough to do that. But if you are strong, you might be able to, but it might take a lot of effort. Whereas if you built a ramp, you could easily just push it up the ramp to the destination. It's our favorite time of the day, recap time. So what are some examples of inclined planes you might see in your daily lives? We'll pause for a minute and think about that. Oh yeah, write that in your journal. So here are some examples of inclined planes you see all the time. So delivery workers, you see over here, they're using that dolly, they're using a ramp to move those boxes up and down. Much easier on them than having to pick them all up. We have a slide, okay, which moves you up and down. And then you have a boat launch. If you've ever been fishing, boating, yachting, maybe something like that, you have the ramp to lower that extremely heavy boat into the water rather than just trying to pick it up and move it. So inclined planes are used when objects have to be moved to a height that is difficult to lift by hand. So you have this guy here who's just rolling that barrel up. He's using a lot less force than this guy over here, who's obviously been working out and picking it up over here, even though he might be straining really hard and might hurt his back. Injuries happen. So instead of trying to lift an object up high all at one time, the inclined plane allows you to gradually move it up a distance. You see this guy here in the bottom of the wheelchair having a great old time because he can get up the ramp. This allows you to push the object slowly up the slope, which is obviously easier to do. So inclined planes also make it easier to go up and down the ramp. Fantastic. So here are some types of inclined planes. You have slope, which is the angle that the inclined plane is set up at. So the greater the slope, the more difficult it is to use an inclined plane. So slope is like this. If you go like this with your hand, right? Greater slope is higher, less, till then it's flat. So long ramps set at a low angle create an easy slope to move object up. So if you have to get a very far distance, right, with a longer ramp, it's going to take you a lot longer to get there, right? Because you're going to have to make the ramp a lot lower angle, all right? But you don't have to use very much force to get up a very shallow ramp. But if you make it steeper to get to that distance, you'll get there faster, right? But then it takes more force to get you up. So recap time. Which slope will have the greatest amount of force needed to move the ball? The high angle or the low angle? Which will go the greatest distance? Which one, the high or the low, has to travel the furthest distance? What about the most amount of work? Now that's something we might not know yet that we'll get on the next slide. All right, solving for work using inclined planes. So in science, the word work has a different meaning. It doesn't mean what you're thinking about, working going to work, or Rihanna, this isn't work time. This is scientific work. So scientific work is using a force to move an object a distance. So it's force and distance. It has to move a distance. So then our formula then is work equals force times distance. So the unit of force we know is newtons, and then distance we know in science, that's meters. So looking at our picture here, we have 3 different ramps with a car on it. Okay, the force that would be needed to move the car up this ramp is 9.8. The force needed here would be 13.9, where the force here on the 60-degree angle would be 17. All right, those are all different forces, but the distance they are traveling, it's the same. They're all trying to get to the same place. So the distance ends up being, or sorry, not the distance. The work needed would all be the same, because even though I have more force needed on the 60, I have to travel less distance. Where at the bottom here, I have less force needed, 9.8, but yet I have to travel a little bit further distance to get up there. All right. So recap time, and it's the last one, so it's our favorite one probably. If a box is pushed up an inclined plane a distance of 5 meters with a force of 10 newtons, what is the amount of work it took to move the box? So I'm pushing a box and I'm pushing it 5 meters, force of 10, get it there. Okay, how much work did I do in science work, not Rihanna? What if the box was now pushed 10 meters, so I'm pushing it a longer period of time, but with less force at 5 newtons of force? How much work was that? Did the amount of work change? Explain how inclined planes are helpful and how they produce the same amount of work, even though they might have different distances or different forces. Thank you for tuning in today. Have a lovely day.